It's a beautiful spring day. Gonna try and tackle all the brake lines, get them tore out, then use them for reference to make new ones. Some of these are gonna be easier. Some of these look pretty rusty and probably gonna be harder. I'm gonna get rid of this valve here, this proportioning valve, depending on how much the suspension is under load. I don't need that anymore. It's actually coming off quite easy. Something's bound to get screwed up sooner or later. And it's free. Now, I really didn't do myself any favors under here. So those two bolts hold on the distribution block for the brakes. And there's also a sensor in there. This is a brace for the steering box so it doesn't crack the frame, and that gets in the way of all that. I'm getting rid of it all anyway, but it's just a pain. I'm gonna try and just cut these lines. Probably end up wearing a bunch of brake fluid, and yeah, there's just all sorts of stuff all in the way. Projects. I decided it's just easier to take it out. Now I got more room to cut these lines and get them out of the way. Well, I am victorious on this. She's out. So I'm going to modify this bracket here to hold this proportioning valve. This is under the master cylinder, like so. This was not bent, I bent it. I'm gonna add a piece of angle iron to extend it so this can sit sort of like that. You get the idea. I think this will work nicely. A little ugly, but it's functional. It's boogered up, welded there. Maybe. There we go. Yep. Terrible, but it'll hold. It should sit about like that. I think that'll be good enough. And it won't vibrate anyway and break any lines. I don't know why I care. Why I'm bothering taking out all the old lines, but I am. I just took a pile of tools to get this 13 mil from behind the headers. Right there. But I'm gonna pull all the brake lines out now. Alright, here's the setup I'm using for my brakes. More specifically, how I'm doing my flares for my tubing. These things are great. The only thing is you can't use this on the car. That's partially why I took all the lines out, but makes it a breeze. And make sure you put the fittings on the correct way before you start your flares. And one more thing. Lubrication is your friend. It'll keep these dies in shape for a long time. Whether you use some sort of grease or even your favorite slippery juice in a spray can. Keeps them alive longer and makes your tubing flare easier. So this is what I got so far. Just getting everything mocked up into place. I'm actually replacing the master cylinder and the booster because I had a truck in between this one. That was a dually, and these went bad and were behaving similarly to how this behaved before I took it off the road. So just gonna go ahead and replace those while I'm monkeying with all the brakes. So, going backwards today. Got my parts, so I'm just gonna change out the Hydro Boost booster and the master cylinder I already have taken off. Gonna get these lines off, get them disconnected, undo the bolts out here, and then I gotta go underneath the dashboard, disconnect the rod from the brake pedal assembly, and then the two bolts, I think, in the middle are on the inside, which is a real pain. I think you have to get the radio out of the way, and then if you get the dashboard apart and pull the gauge cluster out of the way, you can get to it pretty easy. And I'm gonna see if I can get away with not pulling my dash part, because it's a lot different than it used to be. As it turns out, there weren't any screws in the dashboard anyway, so I just pulled it out. It's convenient. And this is my gauge cluster. Primitive, chintzy, but it does the job. Some of you might have noticed the aftermarket lines on my truck. That's because down there, it's a hydraulic assist ram. I just had these fitting adapters to go to the AN style. It worked really well. I believe this style has an O-ring in the bottom. The older trucks, they would have had a tapered flare. You can get adapters for those too. Make anything work. And because this Hydro Boost truck, I don't really make a kit for this, so I just got an extra ram assist kit, hose kit that is, to make this all work. Worked great. Alright, got it on the bench. Totally forgot, you gotta reuse these internal push rod parts, and then this bracket, so you actually have to take the snap ring off, get this nut off, and put it all on the new one. Plus I gotta then make sure I have good O-rings to put on the new unit as well. Got the booster all assembled, got everything bolted back in on the inside. Ended up dropping the steering column down with just the 2 bolts right underneath. Made it easy to get to the last 2 bolts on the inside. Clipped the pedal back into place with its bracketry. I'm gonna go grab the new master cylinder and make my call today. This is where I do a magic trick. Make this squiggly piece of metal fit from there all the way to there. Wish me luck. Ta-da! Perfect. Just got done bolting this in, clamping the lines. Got one over here as well, using the factory hole. Actually had to drill that hole there. Did it from this side. Should give it enough stability so it doesn't flex and move around. I gotta put the steering brace back in that goes across here. So that'll be fun. Gotta do that. So I got the brakes mostly mocked up, all the brake lines. Hit a stopping point because I have some things I want to do to the rear axle before I put the rear brake lines across the tubes. Start a different project, something I should have done a long time ago. Making a proper mount for this inline fuel pump. These holes just line up with one of the cross members, one directly behind the cab. I'm going to offset these clamps so they hold them nice. Gonna have to get some hardware that I can figure out where I want to mount this. We'll go from there. I think I'm just gonna eyeball it. So this is my fuel pump mount. It's just gonna sit in a cross member. Gotta be well protected. Kind of looks like a Stingray because I got this metal fuel line where it attaches to the flex line. So should work pretty decent. Rubber coated. This is foam to help isolate from vibration. Should work, hopefully.